Thank you for joining me for Floral Wednesday. Today we're going to expand our Doodle library and create fodder using the Cozy Nook Collage Art Kit. Now everything that we're learning today is using the templates from this Collage Art Kit, the Cozy Nook, but the skills here you can use for any of your collages. So let's take a look at some of the things that we're going to create. Here we're using the black and white templates, so the floral shapes and the vases from this collection. And then I have here fodder sheets that we'll be working on today. And these are using the scraps from the collage papers in this collection. So we have the floral shapes, and what we did is we cut out, in the getting started video, we cut out the shapes. And then in one of our sessions, we created flowers from these shapes. And then we also have two sizes of vases. So they're just a little bit different, but this adds some variety to your collages. And then we used our scraps after we cut out the vases to create a sheet like let me show you. So we created a sheet like this. And then this is what we're going to be working on today. I wanted to give you some sources of inspiration before we begin. A couple sessions that we have that you might be interested in, and I do recommend. One is the guided doodling session where we explore shapes using the mandala, and you can download the guided doodling sheet for free on our website. As you can see here, we worked on two shapes, the lines and circles. And then in this one, we did teardrops and arcs. So each week when we're doing the guided doodling, we focus on two marks and really expand our creativity that way. The other session that I would recommend is our Sketch and Doodle Thursdays, and that's where I pick a plant and then we do some sketches. And these sketches can be used in our collages and used for inspiration for our designs here. So what I want to do before we begin is show you what we could do with this sheet. We can add these to our collages. So right here, I added from here, I actually took a photocopy of this and then used the photocopy in my collage here. So this adds some interesting design elements. And then I wanted to show you one more thing. The other idea I had was to cut out these after we've doodled them and create other floral elements. So again, I took a color photocopy of this, and here they are here. And then I cut out the shapes, did a line sketch for the stem, and then added these elements. And then you can see how they would be really fun things to add to our floral designs. So we could do something like this, add different elements, so different layouts, different designs. We can combine these into one. So this sheet I made is for inspiration for me and a starting point for ideas. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to move all this to the side. We're going to start with this sheet. This is the black and white template that can be found in the Cozy Nook collection. It's a separate PDF. So we're starting here. So this is the black and white template. And what we need for this step is a Sharpie marker, this is what I'm using, but you can use a pen, pencil, whatever marker you'd like. And then the other thing I like is to have a reference for shapes and marks. And this is something I created here, and I would recommend you can copy exactly what I have here or come up with your own marks. So I'm going to move this one aside, And then we're going to recreate some unique designs here. So I'm going to keep this right here for ideas. One thing that I want to do is to slip a white piece of paper under this template because I'm using a Sharpie, and when I use this, it's sometimes creates little white or black dots on my surface. So I just learned that if I use that white sheet of paper, it'll avoid ruining my surface. So what I'm going to do is to get started and just look at the marks here and then pick a starting point. And if I started with the dots, all I'm going to do is think of ways that I can add dots to this design here. So just creating dots, maybe along the side here. Maybe I want to just do half dots over there. I could fill it. I could use another shape. So maybe add some arcs. So all I'm doing is adding different shapes, different marks to create interesting doodles within each of these shapes. So moving on, maybe a line down the middle. And then some other lines. And what I'm challenging myself to do is to just think of a new design for each of these shapes. So that one I could complete just as is and then move on to the next. Maybe I want to do some V's. And that's interesting because it kind of follows this V here. I could try arcs. And circles. So as I move along, just let my hands guide me. If I want to look at some of my other doodles that I've created in other sessions, I can use those for inspiration. Maybe a swirl. I could try a heart. Kind of fits right in there. Add the V's. So just coming up with ideas. I could try a flower. Maybe ovals like this lined up. Maybe have them start turning into circles. So just moving shape to shape, coming up with ideas. Maybe teardrop and lines. So any combination that's coming to me. I could try to turn this into a flower. Maybe like a flower bud. Just like that. Try an ellipse. A circle in the middle. Dot. And lines. And I could leave it like that or make it symmetric. I am fond of doing plant and floral shapes within these. And you can use your sketchbook for inspiration there. So sometimes I'll just scan this. Maybe I'll do something like this in here. So just taking ideas from my sketchbook. So any sources of inspiration that you have around, again, I could use my doodle sheet. I mean, this is a simple thing to do with circles, but if it hadn't come to me today, I found it on my doodle sheet. So just circles within circles, be some lines in different patterns. Pulling out this one. Maybe I want to do these arcs all the way around. And this is why I like to keep a doodle library. So this is going to be part of my doodle library. If I end up using this for collage fodder, I could take a photocopy and keep that in my doodle library, or to just take a picture. So you could take a picture of all your ideas and then just flip through on your phone. So there's a bunch of ideas there. I'm going to cap my pen and you can continue along. And what we're going to do is move on to the vases. So the vases, I love doing the florals. So here's some ideas here and then some new ideas within this. This is where I really rely on my sketchbook for ideas. So let's get a blank template for the vases. So we have that. We'll get our marker again. And then here, I'm going to use my sketchbook as inspiration. So some of the sketch and doodles we have, there's a playlist for that. So here's where we started with that. So all of these sketches were from just sitting in my backyard and looking at a plant or taking cuttings and bringing them inside. So let's take a look here, how we can use this for inspiration. And I'm going to need a new Sharpie, which I have on hand. Hopefully this one works better. I'm not trying to copy anything exactly. I'm just getting inspiration for the shape. To use in this space here. So there's an idea, and then flipping to the next page. These just adding the circle shapes. And coming up with an arrangement. And these white vases here can be cut out and used in collages. And what you can do is once you add them to a collage, you can color in different components. And I do have an example here from another collection. This is one that I'm working on from the Teal Tango. So this is a white vase that I created with the black and white template, and I added that. So this is kind of a cool thing, adding a collaged vase and then one of the templates. So continuing on. Just getting into a flow as I go. So something like that. And then the other thing I can do is just add some marks up here. Interesting things to the top of the vase. So maybe I want to do some ovals. So I hopefully that gave you some really good ideas. I'll be finishing these later. I keep a stack of black and white templates so that when I just want to relax and doodle, I can work on those. So I have these that I'll be completing later. The next thing that I want to do is to pull out those fodder sheets and my acrylic markers, and we'll get started on adding some interesting doodles and florals to these here. We'll start with this sheet here. So this is the fodder sheet using the scraps from the floral shapes, and I showed you how to do this in the getting started video, and that is included in the link below. So I'm going to move this aside. And what I want here is the color wheel for the Cozy Nook collection. And you can see the colors that are used. We have the analogous colors. So analogous is colors right next to each other. So from red, purple to blue, green. And then we have across the color wheel, the three analogous colors, orange to yellow. And what I want to do, I'm going to show you my setup for when I'm doing acrylic markers. I have my set of acrylic markers here. This is the collection that I love. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Zyre. And they're paint markers. There's 32 colors in this set, and these are extra fine point. So I have all my markers here. I'm going to pull those off. I like to have baby wipes on hand to clean the tips of the acrylic markers, and that just keeps them from drying out, keeps them nice and clean. I have cotton swabs here, and these I dip them in water. So this is my little jar of water. If I make a mistake, if I want to erase something, as long as the acrylic markers are still wet, I can dip the swab in the water and wash it off. This scissor here is just because I don't always use a full sheet. So I just keep that here so that I can cut my baby wipes. What I'm going to do now, actually I'll keep these here. I'm going to move this to the side. Set this down. And what I want to do is to choose the colors for this palette. So we have the reddish purples. I've got my purples, my blues and teals. So teal's the blue green, and then I want my oranges, yellow orange. So these are all the colors I have to choose from. It's really everything except for red and green. And this is just a really fun palette here, especially since we have the colors across the way. So they really harmonize well and are a nice contrast. So these are the colors that I want to have available. So I can move the color wheel to the side. I'll move this over. This I want handy, so it's going to be off camera. I know this is a lot of colors, but I'll show you how I go about it. And then the other one that I want is my black. The last thing I want is a little scrap piece of paper. And this is from the sampler page. What I did is I printed out a sampler, I coated it with Mod Podge, I let it dry, and then I cut it into strips. And this is just a really nice way to test the markers before I begin. But it also gives a way to just check the palette, so to check the colors. If I want to use this blue on certain ones, I can test it out. So I like to have that here. So for the floral shapes, typically what I like to do, for all of mine, is I like to outline the shape. So I just follow the marker. There's a ridge there because we glued down, I'm going to turn this. We glued down the scraps, so there's a ridge that I just follow. And you can see there, I just made a mistake, so that gives me the opportunity to show you. Here's a cotton swab dipped in water. And what I'll do is, since it's still wet, I can wash that off and then dry it with the other side. So that's what I use that for. Okay, so what I want to do now is to take a look at the sheet that we just made. So here it is here, and what I'm going to do is just scan it and choose one design that I like. So maybe this one here. And for this sheet, I typically choose one design and do it across the box. So here we were challenging ourselves to come up with a different design. But for this, I like to do one design across. And I'll show you why. For me, having a number of them the same, that looks really nice to me, but I could do a different design in each. But typically I'll choose one and then I'll do it across the row. So looking at this one, I'm going to have that off to the side. And what I'm going to do is draw it here. So I did 2 arcs. And then I have 3 teardrop shapes like that. So I'm going to just go across. So we did that row, and then I'm going to scan this again and see if there's another design that I want from one of these, or if I want to come up with something completely new. So maybe this one here. So sometimes I got to press my marker and test it again. I'm going to do something like that. And I'm going to do that across the row. So I'm going to cap my marker. For the black, since I'm not going to be using it again in this session, now might be a good time to just wash off the tip. Make sure there's nothing along here, and then cap it. I find they last longer when I'm being aware of cleaning them off at the end of the session. So for this section here, we have the orangish yellow background. We have some teals and pinks, and I can keep to that palette that's within this. But I also know that I'm going to be using this collage using the entire palette. So I might be using this with some blue vases. So anything within this palette is going to make the whole collage cohesive. So making the fodder cohesive to the entire collage. So here I'll use a teal, starting here. So that's found within this palette that I'm working on right now. And at this point, you know, if I want to bring in this light blue isn't within this palette, but it is down here. So maybe I want to bring a little bit of that in, knowing that my Cozy Nook papers have this color in it. And then maybe I'll do this magenta color here. That's how I think about it when I'm choosing colors. I have all of the colors within the palette laid out, and then I make a decision whether I want to just explore the colors within the palette I'm working on here or to bring in other colors. So for this one, this is within the palette. And then I could bring in a color that's not within this palette here. And I think I will. I'll use this one. And let's take a look. So that's it for this session, for this, the shapes, the fodder for the shapes. And then let's take a look at this. So here, this row, and this row, I use just the palette within this, but then I brought in some of the purplish red down here. So that kind of connects it to this one here. So that's how I go about it. And what we'll do is we'll move on to the vases. And I'll pull out this sheet here. And we'll probably work on 2 designs. I want to show you again one of the completed ones. So first, just taking a look at what we did today. So we have these 2 designs, but here's some other ones that I worked on. And then here's one of the completed. So we'll use the same idea for this. I'm going to start with my black marker, which is up here, and then I tend to like to outline the shape, as I said. So whatever style you like to just leave it as is, you can do that. And you can play around with different ways. So I'll do the black outline on both of these. And I made a couple marks there. I could either leave them or maybe I will wipe them off with my wet. Sometimes you end up making a bigger mess. I'm trying to just get a little spot. So let me dip that again. So I just clean that up a little bit. The other thing I like to do sometimes is do this line that we see in the black and white template. So there's a line across, and I'll just show you. So just doing that. We can add any lines. If you want to try to do more abstract, not floral, but more shapes, you can try that. You could try different, like arcs. My marker, we could add something like that to the base first, and then draw our floral. So now I'm looking for inspiration from the sheets I just showed you. If I want to flip through my sketchbook for a little bit more, I can do that as well. But for this, I think what I'm looking at some of my other designs on the side. So just like that. And then coming up with an idea. I actually do like that at the bottom, so maybe I'm going to add a couple circles that I can fill in down here. And I think I'm going to do the same thing. Add these curved shapes there, and then come up with another idea for a flower, just scanning some of the things that I have on the side. So lines and circles. And then do a similar and then maybe add some leaves down below. So just like that. And the last thing I want to do is to add a little bit of designs up here. And then here. And do I want to add, I'll do the circles again, like that. So I'm going to cap my black. I did use it twice today, but I'm going to just clean that off again. Cap it. And then looking at this, just deciding on a color palette. So we have here orange, the orange is yellow, the teal, and then within here we have some of the pinkish colors and the blue. So there's a lot to choose from here. And what I'm thinking is starting off with this yellow orange. And I'm gonna shift or switch colors. Now, anytime I go over those black lines, once that's dry, I can go back and recreate some of the black lines. I'll try this yellow up here. And then more of an orange. And continue. And then choosing another color. The same at the top. And then I could decide to color in. So I have two of the same here because one of them is getting low. And I will try the low one just to see. And do I want to do that bottom one? I think I want to do that, this color here. So bringing in multiple colors from the same palette. Just like that. So I'm going to stop here for today. So for this one, I would do the same thing. I would decide if I'm using many colors in the palette, if I want to bring these in, and actually I'm going to do this on a time lapse because I can't leave this undone. What I'm going to do is use the colors that are on the outside. Okay, so that's complete. And I had mentioned that if I've gone over the lines, that my last step is to just check to see if I want to darken or recreate the black lines on the outside. Okay, so for these, they can certainly be added to collages, but my idea for them is to cut these out and then use them for the front of cards. These will make beautiful, beautiful greeting cards. So that's it for today's session. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got a lot of great ideas, and I look forward to see what you're creating. Thank you.